This video is dedicated to Jaman, one of my Parlay certified patrons. You too can get my response to your requested topic every month if you join Jaman as a $9 monthly patron on patreon.com/zandypants. Now, behold, Jaman asks, if you lick air, does it get wet? By the way, Jaman, thank you for the Forma bundle. I really appreciate the gift. No, it doesn't get wet. If you lick air, it does not get wet. It gets wetter. The air does get comparatively wetter. It is more wet than it was before you licked it. But to say that something is wet is to make a statement about the relative overall degree to which it is covered in water or moisture. Anyway, this is going to be a lot of moments like that in this answer. And when you lick, so stick out your tongue. Do it with me. Stick out your tongue. Like that. And what you've just done is you've exposed your tongue to the air. And your tongue is comparatively more moist, to use a terrible word. So some of the moisture is going to evaporate off, and it's going to be well in the air. It's going to be mingled with the air particles and the CO2 and the nitrogen and stuff. So yes, those air particles are wet. Just the particles that your tongue touched, I suppose they are wet. They're not just wetter, they are probably pretty wet overall. But to say that the air is wet is not accurate, because the air overall implies like all of the air. Realistically, when we say the air in here, or the air about him, or whatever, we're not referring to all of the air ever, but we're also certainly not referring to the air only around your mouth. I think that even in the most conservative sense, we are referring to at least all of the air around your entire body. And in the grand scheme of things, licking the air particles that are only the air particles that are right near your tongue when you lick them does not make the air, as implied to be even the air around you, let alone the air in the room or all the air ever, wet. It does make it wetter, but it does not make it wet. So I would say overall, no. If you lick air, it does not get wet. But only depending on how you define the terms. Because again, on the other hand, if you're asking, if you lick air particles, do those air particles get wet? The answer is yes. But I think that colloquially speaking, if you ask this question and don't specify which terms you mean, which of course you did not, and I'm sure that is the entire point, I would say that no. Overall, the air, capitals, is not wet. It is more wet, but it is not overall very wet. In the sense that if you went out in the rain, you thought it was done, you'd be wet. If you stand around in the rain, generally we're willing to say you are wet. But you are overall not wet if you are just near a body of water. There is certainly more moisture in the air around that body of water. So you are wetter than if you were further away from that body of water, but you are not overall wet. Yes, the body of water is causing the air right near it to be comparatively pretty wet. Especially on a hotter day, it's all sublimating off or whatever. But the same way that you are not truly wet, you are just wetter than you otherwise would have been, the body of water is, I'm going to say it, not wet. Water is not wet. To say that something is wet is to make a statement about its comparative moisture content. Water cannot be wet, because it has not changed state from being. Water cannot be wet or dry, because it is the measure by which it is what I can't. Also, that one charger was kind of stuck in the wall for a little while, and I've been Zandy, and I want to thank Jaman once again for their support on Patreon. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have something to take care of.